Hello, my name is Caitlin Copeland. I'm a student at Mid-Michigan College, and my professor is Jacob Hamrick for my history class. And for my capstone project, my topic is the development of democracy in ancient Greece, particularly Athens. So, for my introductory, democracy means rule by the people, and we trace its origins from early forms of governance to the innovative system developed in Athens. And democracy wasn't just a political system, it was a radical idea that empowered citizens to participate directly in their governance. So, next is early forms of governments in Athens. And basically, it went from monarchy to aristocracy and oligarchy. So before democracy, Athens experienced all of those. Initially, kings ruled, but power gradually shifted to aristocrats, leading to oligarchies, which are ruled by a few powerful families. These early systems were characterized by concentrated power, which often led to social demands for broader participation. So next is Cleisthenes reforms, and here I'm just going to be talking about the introduction of the Council of 500, reorganization of tribes, and increased citizen participation. So Cleisthenes, he was often called the father of Athenian democracy. He introduced these foundational reforms, so creating the Council of 500, reorganizing tribes to reduce aristocratic influence, and increasing citizen participation. So his reforms laid the groundwork or foundation for a more inclusive political system, which allowed for more Athenians to have a say in their government. Next is the assembly and more citizen participation. So I'm going to be talking about the role of the assembly, voting procedures, and citizen responsibilities. So the assembly was a central institution of Athenian democracy. It allowed citizens to gather, discuss, and vote on laws. Every citizen had the right to speak and propose their own ideas. Voting was direct. It was often by a show of hands. And decisions were binding. And this direct participation was a key aspect of Athenian democracy. Next is the role of the courts. I'm going to be talking about or introducing popular courts, juries, and the concept of trial by peers. So, Athenian courts were another crucial element of democracy. They introduced popular courts with large juries, ensuring trial by peers, and citizens could bring legal actions, and juries made decisions based on evidence and arguments. And these courts empowered citizens to seek justice and hold officials accountable, which reinforced the rule of law. So next is limitations of Athenian democracy, which is basically the exclusion of women, slaves, and non-citizens. So the only citizens were males or men. And it is important to acknowledge the limitations as well, because Athenian democracy excluded women, non-citizens, and slaves. And so only free adult men could participate, which created a risk of demagoguery, which is political activity or practices that seek support by appealing to the desires and prejudices of ordinary people rather than by using rational argument. Which speakers could manipulate public opinion because of that. But despite these limitations, Athenian democracy was a significant step forward in the history of political systems. So next is legacy of Athenian democracy, which had an influence on modern democratic systems and political thought. So the principles of Athenian democracy, citizen participation, the rule of law, and equality before the law have really influenced modern democratic systems and political thought. Ideas like representative democracy and constitutionalism owe their origins to Athens. The Athenian experiment offers valuable lessons and continues to inspire efforts to create more inclusive and participatory democracies today still. So, in conclusion, the development of democracy in ancient Athens was a transformative period in history. From early governments, from early forms of governments to the reforms of Cleisthenes and the establishment of the assembly and the Council of 500 and popular courts, Athens created a system where citizens had a direct say in their governance. While it did have its limitations, the legacy of Athenian democracy continues to shape our understanding of democracy and its potential, and studying it really helps us appreciate the ongoing search for more just and participatory societies. So, why the development of democracy in ancient Athens is important is because it laid the foundation for modern democratic systems. It introduced concepts like citizen participation, rule of law, and public debate, which are still central to democratic government and governance today. Athens' democratic experiment, despite its limitations, provided a model for future societies seeking to empower their citizens and establish their fair and just political systems. My biggest personal takeaway is probably how much of an impact or influence the development of the democracy in ancient Athens has still today on our democratic systems. I didn't realize how much of an impact that has on us still today. I think my least favorite part about this was still doing all the writing and stuff. I would have just rather, which I know is needed, but I would have still rather just done a presentation and done research that way and just made slides out of that. But my favorite part was getting to learn more about ancient Athens and that democratic system and how it's transformed and changed to today.